through the bond. There has been. Like, they couldn't use the pool, they can't use the bocce, tennis courts. So that's just something that was their big concern. And their other concern was that they weren't ready to do this for a few years. And I said that once we get the bond, we have a certain period of time to start using the money, and some of it would be used immediately. So it's not that you have to start putting the bricks in the floor today.
Yeah, it's especially in this scenario where you're built out, if you're going to start charging that annual debt service number, it's good to have the improvements in as quickly as possible so they see the value of the increase in their assessments.
Right.
It's not like new development where they're just bringing in, you get promises from a developer to those that are buying that it'll be done in spring of 2022 or whatever.
Because we'll be doing the landscaping, and this would finance the landscaping. We will be doing the roads, which we're going to have to assess for the roads anyway. So if we can get this under a 30-year bond, it would be most beneficial to everybody rather than, X amount for the landscape, X, and then drawing that out. I think doing it this way would be the most logical way to do it.
The round numbers in my estimator here, I think I've covered all of those. 6.2 for the building, includes some transactional cost above the $6 million.
Right.
Road repairs, resurfacing at $800,000, landscaping at $1 million, wall at $1 million, and new community center at 1.5 for a total of 10.5. Put that into the kitty, and 3.5% is the assumed interest rate. I'm actually thinking probably better than that, but that's going to give you a decent number. Debt service reserve at 50% of max annual debt service. That's the security for the bondholder. I've been seeing those on a project like this being 25%, but I've estimated 50% is kind of the worst case scenario as I see it in the market. The par per lot principal assignment of this debt would be $10,040. Cost of issuance is $424,700. That's the 2% discount, plus you've got bond counsel, general counsel, assessment methodology, manager. You get all those in there, you're looking at about $200,000 plus the 2%. That gets you a par issuance of $11,235, which generates, after the debt service reserve issuance cost, $10,504 in net proceeds. So that covers the $10,005 that I, $10 million $5 that I had outlined earlier.
What's the term?
And the annual debt service on 30 years would be $546
Per door. Per door.
per door. So that's the first number that's part of the non-resident membership equation. And you got any operating costs that go into that building, which they would operate it as the association, those costs can be added in as well. And then you can apply escalators. Now you're getting something that's probably up around $1,000 a year. It's not real palatable to somebody that lives outside of the community.
Right. Do you have any questions?
You mentioned wall in there.
No, that's part of the landscaping, where we have to say what we're going to use it for, but if we decide to do, wait a minute, if we decide to do, rather than a wall, it can be a wall of concrete, or it can be a wall of landscaping too, so it's just
That's a corkscrew road.
corkscrew by Weymouth.
Probably better termed as a buffer.
But we haven't heard back from the city's liability on taking that landscaping down yet, right?
No, we're still waiting.
So that's a question.
County.
County, whoever.
Yeah, I've heard nothing. Randy said you was on vacation. I'll follow up with that.
Okay. Yes, we haven't heard anything on that. And again, like we said at the last meeting, I don't want them planting something. I want an estimate of what it's going to be. They'll put daisies there when I want something for buffers. I like daisies.
Yeah.
I have two questions. First question, with this letter of intent, will that slow Andrew down a little bit on this remediation?
Certainly would hope so. Yeah.
Because when we were in the meeting, we kind of discussed the fact that if we did it, we would in turn, the pro shop's 20 plus years old, needs to be gutted and redone and a lot of work done to it. there's no sense in doing the sealing and turn around and gut it in 9 months.
My sense is that he would was backed off on that. He gets that, notice of intent and notice of non-disclosure. He can give us a term sheet, we can look at his books. I think he's going to back off, especially since you've got a report that says the air quality's fine. It's not like we have a public health and safety issue. So.
Then the other thing is, he is saying that the net profitability is like $300,000. How would that reflect on the resident's bond payment, or like, would that reduce that?
That has to come into the equation.
Right.
When we run some final numbers and we can confirm that, in fact, that's a number, and that's a somewhat fluid operation as well. I would want to assume what he's showing at 330, I would want to assume something shorter of that, conservative.
More realistic.
But we're looking at a high estimate,
Right.
10.5, it's going to cost each resident $550 a year. Worst case scenario, if we don't have any receivables from this transaction.
Correct.
Or if that's not even counting the fact that we may get it at a cheaper price, wall may not cost that much. It's all worst case scenario. So
Yeah.
So if we do it, again, we'll just use 10.5, and we're a certain time period in the year, whatever, maybe one of the projects we overestimated, or we decide we're not going to do a project, but we have the funds there. We just lump those funds back into a payment, and so it goes from 10.5 to 9 or 8 or whatever.
Yes, you can prepay.
we want to make sure we're covered on
We
the
would have
top.
the money, but if we don't do a project or a project's cheaper,
Gotcha.
we can take that excess money and just throw it back in to pay it down.
Yeah.
And what the residents-
We'd have to validate this as well, so we're going to add an extra 60 to 90 days in there for the validation process, but we'll validate it, and usually when we validate, we want to increase by, say, 20%, just to give you extra gap there. You don't want to keep going back to the circuit court.
Right.
So.
And the other thing that the residents need to understand is with this bond, nothing is going to the golf course. The golf course still has to remain on its own. So we are not trying to finance this to increase the golf course funds. The golf course still needs to stay on their own, and the golf course will still pay rent
That's right.
to the residents because they will still be renting that side of the building. And the residents need to understand that this is not, because something came to me, well, this is so you don't have to do anything. No, that's not the case. The pro shop will still pay rent, and then the district will be their landlord.
It's certainly something not saying you're being disingenuous, but
No.
it's certainly something that's being done that would benefit the golf course.
Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely. Oh, absolutely.
Which in turn benefits the community.
And, yeah,
But so, to some degree, yes, this is being done to benefit.
Benefit the course,
The
but-
golf course will still pay for this.
right, and the golf course is not getting any money per se
Right.
from it. And I think
Right.
that was, well, why am I paying again for the golf course? No, you're not going to. So I just wanted that out for the record. Okay. Does anybody else have any questions with regard to this? I think, Tony, we'll start with your term sheet.
We'll jump on that.
Thank you.
I know this was mentioned in the last meeting, but I'm just curious how we do all this, and from their standpoint, how do we keep it from being public record?
And that's the opinion that I need to be comfortable with, how to achieve that, and whether it's possible, and to what extent.
Because
Because of the public record.
anything they would give to us would become public record. So if we would decide not to purchase it, but they want to sell it to somebody else, anybody else coming in could already come out and see everything.
And that's the difficulty.
Right, so we have to walk a fine line there.
And the other thing that Amy said, with just one board member would be participating and looking at this, we'd have to figure out how we're doing all
Yes.
that, and who would be the best qualified to sit and go through all
And
that.
again, it's
a fine line.
It's on, yes.
So,
Yeah, it's not going to be,
so whatever
If it's
board,
possible,
right.
That's another thing, we talked about that in the call, and it was mentioned that Henry recognizing that also,
Right, then it's,
because he's been on part of boards before.
yeah, so it's just a matter of, who goes there and, if we're doing this and the whole board doesn't get to see it, so it's kind of, it's a fine line that we're walking, so we're walking. Okay.
It's worth the risk.
I believe it is worth the risk.
And we can come up with a plan B if it doesn't work out.
And then, So the pro shop and the bond insurance, we'll just have to wait for the appraisal and see where that all goes with that.
Once we can get access to those books, that's another thing that the appraiser needed.
Right.
He's appraising the business operation.
Now, again, when he gets that information, is he bound to the Sunshine to not discuss, that'd be part of the non-disclosure?
We, as his client, would be the only ones that he would be providing that info to.
Okay.
And then it falls under whatever Tony can
If
come
I
up
can feel
with.
comfortable, yes, again, that's always the key.
Yes. Okay.
Good luck finding the exemption.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's going to be difficult, you know.
So you'll have that to us by tomorrow afternoon?
It's just a 365-day tomorrow.
Yeah, one of those days. Okay. Our next guest is Johnson Engineering. We are asking and proposing that they do a line of sight survey. And that's all part of this landscape project that, because what the committee decided, and I think the community as a whole wants those berms down, and we need to see how far we can really see one way or another. You all have their proposal. The only part I had, and I'm sorry, you all,
I'm Leah.
Leah. Okay, and, okay, sorry. On here, you only have the one side of Stratham Loop, you didn't feel that the other side needed to be looked at?
We can certainly add that in there and assess both of them.
I'm just wondering,
So when you say side, is it like one side of, you mean like the, so that would be an east and west side, correct?
Yes, so in any event, we're pulling out to making a left or a right for both of those if there's any. So basically, each of the locations, whichever, the community feels, because there's, so I think we have 12 locations in the proposal.
Yes.
If there are additional ones, or if there's one of those that doesn't have any issues that you feel, there's nothing here, there's not really a plan to do that, we could take that out or put one in. But basically, we'll do the assessment on each one, we'll do site triangles, see how far into those berms and landscaping and what the extent is for each one, and provide a recommendation and information.
That list of streets was provided to us, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
okay. Okay, in pursuing the landscaping, I definitely think this is something we need to have done in order to, do this the right way. So this was the estimate was $7,100 for the proposal. Any of the board members have questions for Johnson Engineering? So I need a motion to accept their proposal and have them start doing the work.
When are we going to do the roads?
The roads are going to be done in 2025, but this wouldn't be the road project. This would be part of the landscaping coming out of the roads,
Yeah.
getting that done. So that really would not impact.
That's a year away too, right?
Well, we're waiting to get all the proposals, but this is something that when Johnson Engineering comes back and says this needs to be 50 feet, then we'll give this to Juniper, and Juniper will say, okay, well then, this is what we'll have to plant there. So it's really in conjunction. And I would rather do this sooner than later, so that when Juniper does all their stuff, it's like, oh, we can't put that there because the line of sight is not, it's going to interfere with it all over again. So the traffic study really needs to be done kind of in conjunction with Juniper getting their designs together in order to do this. And this is something that, knock on wood, we've lucked out that nothing major has happened in some of these waters. so.
Well, as I said before, if we could take the foliage down, that would mitigate 90% of it. So I don't know why we haven't done that yet.
Well, it's not only the foliage, it's also the berms.
I understand that, but I'm saying that the foliage blocks 90% of the visual. If that were down, I could see what's coming 100 feet away easily.
That's not the case.
Well, it is the case for me. I'm not.
Maybe on your
not for
intersection,
you.
right on.
But I come out of this road every single day. So right here on Braxfield, I can see to the right, but I can't see to the left. There's no foliage to the right, there's foliage to the left.
Yeah.
And see what happens on, if I'm not mistaken, on your intersection looking to the left, that line is back before the curb, before the sidewalk. They all are, they have to be, obviously.
Because of the walk.
Because, right, you don't hit somebody. And when you look down to the left through there, I think the line of sight looking left has to be, what, 85 feet?
A lot of it depends on your speed to the road too.
Does it?
So what is it at 25?
I would have to look to get you the exact number.
That's not a general number?
For the speed, yes.
Okay.
Based on the speed, whatever that distance is, I would need to confirm that number.
Okay.
Yeah.
Number 50 has been thrown out.
I want to say it's like 85,
50 feet on
roughly.
both sides.
Huh?
Remember 50 being thrown out?
No, it's well beyond that. It's 85 one and then like 9, it's more left than right, correct, when you're coming out of an intersection. So, yeah, maybe 85, 75. I remember the 85 number vividly. But that was, like you said, it all depends on the speed of the roads. But this was a Lee County general, like a Lee County's guideline.
And feel like, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
And when you get to 85 feet, you start going well beyond that, and so yeah, you can take it out, but then when you look at it from a landscape perspective, like, what the hell's going on here? You know, when you're driving down the road, because you've got like, this is missing, and all, behold, it's for that angle, you know what I mean, coming out of that.
In pretty much every intersection, every one of those trees coming up.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, we talked about maybe trying to cherry pick some of them, but if you pull up just a little bit too far, this one's gonna be in your way, so. But I think we talked about doing them, as we're doing it, take the certain trees out we think it's gonna need to be, and then see, before we take the rest out. And then if it is, and then if we take so many out and it looks stupid, we'll take them all out, you know?
So really, I mean, a lot depends on, you know, the line of sight, what we need to do. And if we're doing this landscape project, and we're going to do it so that it's done right, we really need to get the line of sight and see how far we go and what can be put there in the future that's not going to grow and, you know, and hamper the line of sight in the future. So,
If you go down this road, then it can't be, well, we'll keep this tree, we'll get rid of that tree. It's got to be what they say to do.
right.
That's exactly right.
So you have to assume that 85 feet either side, those trees are gone.
At every intersection.
Most, yeah. There's only a few streets where, like Port Rush, you can look a little bit to the right and not have an issue. Wyndham, there's no issues.
Primarily to the left that you're looking at?
Well, once you get past your street and Weymouth, like, there's no issues there at Weymouth. But anything beyond that, yeah, it's basically both directions.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean,
It's the
coming
same
out of
distance.
Berwick,
Yeah, pretty much. Some are worse than others. They're just way worse than others. Like I said, Port Rush looking out to the right, it's not that bad, but to the left, I've trimmed that back. What was it? Mrs. Bosch stopped me the other day. We trimmed some more stuff back there.
Well, I'll beg to differ. Coming out of Fort Rush, you've got that mirror there that you're looking at.
Yeah.
And I think that's a terrible street to come out of, looking to the right, because you really,
I have cars
Right,
come
but-
out and stick out all the time.
Right, I see what you're saying. Turning left, looking to the right, is what you're
Yes.
talking about, right.
so,
It's because of the shrubs. That's why.
yeah. But then you know,
Cutting the berms down.
I'm telling you, that would mitigate 90%, but y'all do whatever you want.
And lowering it will be we're putting 4 stop signs at every intersection.
yeah, I don't think we want stop signs. They use it as a suggestion as it is, so, to put more.
All the shrubs.
And there are some that can just reduce the shrubs, but again, if you start taking just the shrubs out, then you've got this vacant. So we really kind of need to know what's going on both sides and incorporate it into the landscape.
Yeah, I mean, this is kind of like a safety remediation beautification project all wrapped up in the one.
I'd like to try and see what we can do ourselves.
Okay, who are you gonna get to do it?
I don't know.
Okay,
We can't go down that route.
no,
If we're gonna do it, we gotta do it.
we gotta do it right, and you gotta do it everything, and I
We just
can't,
also open ourselves up to liability by just saying, oh, okay, well, we're gonna do this and that. It's my opinion, I'm not a lawyer, but if you,
There are certain criteria for the line of sight which we have to comply with regardless. And if you hire a contractor, at least you have an opportunity to say the contractor has that obligation. I mean, the district ultimately has that obligation.
right. So, I understand it, but,
I don't wanna stick it on our shoulders, I wanna stick it on John's shoulders or John's crew to come out and try to decide what stays and what doesn't. You know, this looks good, this doesn't, or boy, you can see that way, you can't see this way.
Right.
They're supposed to be taking care of a golf course,
right.
not trying to figure out DOT problems.
Well, I'll make a motion that we accept this proposal from Johnson Engineering to do the line of sight survey so we can incorporate this in the future landscaping plan. Wait a second. Okay, you guys,
To be honest, I'm not a fan of it,
I mean, I can't see putting the money after the landscaping if we're not going to do this properly. And we are aware of the issues out there.
Yeah. Check that out.
Just from a legal perspective, if the board has the obligation to maintain its facilities in a safe and good condition, it's aware of a possible concern with regards to violating county ordinances or traffic safety criteria, the manual uniform traffic control devices as to line of sight or distance issues, then one or two things has to happen. The district has to warn of that issue or correct the issue.
We've been discussing this for over 10 years.
That's well documented.
Yeah.
Liability negligence is what I was, like, you become a part where you're always liable, right? Well, CDD's always liable.
Well, that's the issue. Again, if you have a manual or a code that requires establishes certain criteria,
You have to.
if you don't comply with it, then there's an opportunity for liability and exposure and litigation and the expenditure.
Well, that's the point with the analysis. If we approve this and we get this feedback, then we have to take action
Yes.
immediately.
I don't know about immediately, but you have to take action either.
There has to be a plan in place to get it.
Correct. Warrant up, for example, my easiest example is you have a sidewalk and it raises more than a quarter inch, which is, so it's non-ADA compliant. One or two things has to happen. You see it around, people spray paint orange, they put cones out, they put little signs out. So you're warning of it, and then you embark upon a program to fix it. So you can't ignore it once you're aware of it.
Yeah. And acceptance is making us aware of it.
Well, if it's been discussed.
Oh, yeah, this is well,
We've been well aware of this issue.
Let
I
me-
mean, legally.
Let me just give you an example of a lawsuit that I haven't tracked in a while, but about a year and a half ago, and it sounds crazy, but a bicyclist going down Estero Boulevard by the old water tower, that used to be there at high school, like that. It was a nice landmark by Carl Johnson State Park. Took a tumble, alleging that the tumble was caused by one of those blue pavement markers they use for fire hydrants that was located outside the area that's recommended by the design manuals. And so the Lee County said, no, dismiss this action, summary judgment. You know, there's no, we didn't violate anything, but there are affidavits from a traffic engineer saying, no, no, no. So that's proceeding forward. So even the smallest things such as that could create liability, because the argument is you have a manual that says, here's where these blue markers go, within a certain lateral distance. And if it's outside that, you have exposure. Now,
but Phil, by accepting this, we're incorporating this into the landscape project that we've already agreed that we're going to be doing. So,
Do we know when we're going to do that? Is there a
well,
time frame?
I'm waiting for, they're waiting for the CAD drawings, they're waiting for, we have to get the proposals, and again, all of this is part of that.
But aren't we just gonna be included in that bond we're gonna try and?
Yes.
Yes.
So, again, that's how far along the way before we even get started.
Yeah, we're looking at Chuck on the bond, potential bond approval.
If you said go tomorrow, probably 4 months.
Okay.
Because we have to start the assessment proceeding, because that's one of the required documents that goes before the court in validation. We can run in parallel with an underwriter.
Yeah.
And getting all the documents in order, so we're ready upon validation approval, which is pretty standard. He can go to market and price them. About 4 to 5 months. So.
And one other consideration when it comes to any code requirements, if there's a Lee County code that has a line of sight requirement, most counties and cities do, all you need is one complainant, and then code enforcement is not going to do your work. Then you have to come up with a remediation plan, or they take you to code enforcement court, or magistrate, or hearing examiner, and that's just a pain in the neck, inexpensive, and then you have to comply ultimately.
Yeah.
I've been down that path, unfortunately.
So
Not
Mike,
because
are you talking about approving this and putting it in the bond? Is that what you're
Well, the
suggesting?
landscape's part of the bond.
Right.
So this would ultimately be part of the cost.
roll up underneath.
Yes.
So a survey's got to happen regardless of whether we have a landscaper do it.
Right.
It has to happen either way.
So not necessarily this, but
No, I think this does have to happen either way, the line of sight, because we have the issue,
For the
right?
compliance.
Yeah.
Right, this has to happen, but the landscaping project ultimately wouldn't have to happen. I think it's the other way around, right?
Well, does landscapers have any compliance things they have to go through? Do they know what the?
Well, once they give us the feedback, we'll give that to them, and they'll be like, this is what we,
Say they don't get any engineering company to do that. Can they on their own do that?
no, they have to be certified engineering. No, you have to be a certified engineer for something like that, I would imagine. I mean, you're talking about people's safety and lives.
Right, well, when we spoke with them, they were saying that they would have to get an engineering to do the traffic thing, because that's not what they do.
Right.
And they would get the information there.
Yes.
And I'd say, Mike, ultimately, they answer that question, no, they don't, they would have no idea.
Yeah.
Most of them have maybe, like, about as much as I know, that you gotta have a certain amount of feet. Like, I just learned, I didn't know the mile per hour was a factor, and how fast that increases, or... And it's all right there, I gave him, I'll make some copies of that, and get them to you, so you guys can have them. That's Lee County's.
So then again, I mean, if you choose not to do this and do it on our own, it's not something that John's guys are doing. So now we're going to go out and spend money to have people come in and take down whatever needs to be taken down, when we can incorporate this all in the landscape project and get it done properly.
So could you throw this into part of the bond?
Yeah.
That's what we're proposing.
and we're only talking about $7,000.
Right.
So,
Yep.
okay, we have a motion on the table. Still no second. Mr. Martinez?
I'll say. I mean, I think we do have to just finally
Bite the bullet and move on.
grind this tax.
Isn't there something, if this is on an agenda, you're admitting, so to speak, that there's an issue?
Absolutely.
So if something
Yeah,
comes
that's
up
what I
and you have
said.
acted on it, I would say this would be some.
If somebody really wanted to come after us, you could look through the minutes for the last 10+ years. We've talked about this at least probably twice a year over that, because it comes up.
You raised it at least once.
Yeah, I mean, it just comes up. We did the whole thing, we actually went to the village, talked to them about, what we could do with the intersection, so there would be no denying the fact that this board has been aware of a potential issue. And I get, it does make more sense, look at it and try to knock it out in this thing. I'm more concerned what our intersections are gonna turn out to look like, and then I've said this in the past, you can look at those intersections, those things probably should have never passed inspection to begin with. Yeah, especially where I live, I mean, it's so laid back, you can plant nothing and you still couldn't see anything.
Well, look at coming out of Lancaster.
Yeah, but anyway, that's been, even that course.
It's dead.
Yeah.
So I have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay.
At one point, the answer was those mirrors that they have out on golf courses for sharp turns.
Yeah, they've
Yeah.
got several of those mirrors.
We have several of
Those
those.
they have.
I never know what I'm looking at when I look at it.
I know, right, it's like a big bubble.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
Yep, okay, I'll update it all.
Okay, so Chuck, we have a motion and it was approved.
Yep.
So we'll get Johnson Engineering there to start doing this. Thank
I just
you.
want to say, I know that Scott Smith with Juniper has reached out to Sandy King, and I just sent her email during the meeting that she called up and get those files to him as soon as possible.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
We'll have to,
Thank you all.
we would have to provide that to everybody, though, forever. I mean, then again, are we talking about an closed bid project?
The design. was
Whatever
not-
they come up with, would
But they
be
some
provided
proceed
to any.
caution.
Yes.
Yeah, it will be a sealed bidding.
Right, it would be a sealed bid because of the cost, but Juniper was hired to design it and give us a cost. And once they give us a cost, then we will do the sealed bid too.
Yeah, they'll just get us on the cost of the car.
Yeah. Okay, the financials from this. So the governmental funds are in good shape. We'll be making our payments. Does anybody have any questions or comments on the general fund? The residents just have 4 more payments, which will be nice. The irrigation fund is good. We are down to, due from the golf course is down over 122,000. And we are getting that down each month with the pay.
Yeah, we had the opportunity to do that again. I mean, we'll put it on hold to Mr. Brady's point, and we'll wait and see what happens, but I think we can have that paid off by January, February at the latest.
And hopefully with the cash position we're in, you can see where we were last year. We're close to $129,000 over where we were last year at this point. And so financially, our cash balance is in good shape.
Yes.
So we'll continue with that and the consolidation fund. On the irrigation fund, we have miscellaneous. What's that for? It's $5,500 to a budget of $2,500. We can check on that. That was my only question. We may have.
We brought it up. I don't know if we got an answer, but yeah, we talked about
Okay.
this.
Pull the GL and remind us all what it was.
So is it a cost for somebody to assess something, or like,
Okay.
so I vaguely remember.
And the golf fund. All right, so Jeff, you're saying the money due from the general fund, you just want to give?
Well, to Chris's point, I want to, we don't, if we can get away with not paying it, I mean, we could take that same amount that we're accruing there from the payroll for what is it, the ground maintenance?
Common ground.
Common ground. We can accrue that, or, build it up and put it in towards the bond as far as that goes, instead of paying the water back.
Okay.
If that's something that is okay with the auditor. If not, I mean, like if we're paid off by February, we can still continue to do that in the future,
Right.
because we can accrue that, and then as long as we don't need it, and as long as, we don't get in a situation where,
We need some money.
it rains 20 days in February and we're SOL, you know what I mean?
Right. Okay, with the rest of that, any questions on the budget. Jeff, you said, we already discussed your, the insurance for, that was in the
It's in the concessions.
concessions, so, we're looking at that, so. And you did say some of that at one point in time was,
Yeah, a limited amount. I think there was,
because we had Ben in there, and that was just a portion of Ben. But,
right.
yeah, that needs to be split out, and Lucy's working on that. Anything else? And Jeff, with the alarms, I know the alarm was high this year because they did their 5-year maintenance or whatever.
Yes.
And we'll just have to be aware, like 3 years from now, just to make sure we increase that, so we're not hit with it,
That's the fire alarm
Right,
in
your
the cart
5-year.
barn.
check everything.
And we'll probably have some additional expense in that alarm because of those false alarms. That's where it's being coded to.
Okay. How much do they charge us each time?
Well, it's an accelerating scale. It starts at 25 and goes up from there.
Nice.
It's a great racket.
Okay. John, on yours, there was a equipment rental?
Yeah, on the equipment rental, that's, they actually billed us wrong.
Okay.
That's actually just under $2,000. I've taken care of that. Got that all squared away with Lucy.
Okay.
Equipment repair, same thing, is really high, like $8,000. We're only, I think it's like 3,600 is what we budget, maybe 3,500 for the month. We're probably at about 6,500 for the month of June. But the other 2,500 I've taken care of. It's obvious some things were coded wrong, supposed to be in other areas. The golf service, I'm still waiting to see back on why that's so high. I don't have a postage. All of a sudden, this just popped